Portfólió podcastek.
Hey, I'm Portfolio Podcast Editor Elven, and you're listening to the special edition of Portfolio Checklist. Revolut continues to post extraordinary growth figures while it remains laser-focused on its ultimate goal, becoming the largest bank in the world. In Hungary alone, the fintech giant captured 500,000 new customers in 2025. Today, we dive into Revolut's broader European strategy, what's next on the market localization front, and whether it's truly realistic to sustain this breakneck pace. I'm thrilled to welcome Kuba Fast, Revolut Bank Europe's newly appointed CEO, in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm Polish, so every trip to Hungary is good news.
Great. Listen, last year, one of your colleagues, Maria Lukács, was here in the studio, and she talked about how you teamed up with Sziget Festival, which is one of the biggest music festivals in Europe. And now we're talking here in the studio right before Formula One, the Formula One race gets going. You want to tell us more about why Formula One came into the picture? Why not the World Cup, for instance?
Formula One is just such an amazing fit for Revolut. So, we want to be where the people are. And Formula One is global, right? It's a global asset, so many millions of fans all around the world. And with our ambition to be a global bank, it's a perfect match. But Formula One is also speed, competition, high technical sophistication, high digital sophistication as well, because, we all think about petrol and cars, but there's so much data, so much analytics, it's such a sophisticated sport, and that really is aligned with a lot of our Revolut values. So we really felt it's like a great match for us. In many ways, it maybe is a bit of a only Revolut can do it as well, because it's a massive global property, massive global sponsorship. So we're all super excited, and we think it's a great alignment.
Yeah, yesterday, actually, we had a chance to take a closer look at what you're talking about right now, and it's really incredible what's going on there, in terms of professionalism and how well and smoothly everything is organized. Now, Revolut founder Nick Storonsky said the other day that he needs independent people, so-called self-guided missiles, who can see a target and who can basically find their own path and get to this target without any supervision. So we assume you are considered as a self-guided missile by Nick. And also, on this occasion, we would like to ask you what's got Revolut's growth to do with how Revolut's work is organized and how the staff is motivated, because I'm sure this is very much part of the success here.
Revolut has been, as you said, on a fantastic trajectory. We've done the math recently, and with 58 million customers in Europe, we think we are the largest retail bank in Europe by now. So a long way, from a card and a new app to use from time to time. This is the largest bank in Europe today, regulated by the European Central Bank. It's the first leagues, and it continues growing. So we add 1 million customers every 17 days globally, and the grand majority of those are in Europe. So that pace continues. We're adding customers, we're adding product. And at the core of it, there is a component of, hey, we do pay obsessive attention to a fantastic product, and that's what really carries the growth. As you will know, Levi, Revolut in the early years didn't spend anything on marketing. It was all people using the product, loving it, and recommending it to others. And that's still there. That machine, the delivery of product is still there. According to our data, we are also the most recommended bank in Hungary, the number one in terms of so-called net promoter score, right? So the likelihood of customers to recommend. But that's just one piece. And to your point, Revolut is run in a particular way, and talent and the way it's managed is absolutely an important component of the whole picture. The self-guided missile, it's a bit of an image, it's a bit of a story, and I think it doesn't mean everybody goes in their own direction. To be very clear, we're a big international group, and we want to do everything with high quality. We take our obligations seriously. but it reflects a very high bar for talent, right? And I think that very high bar for talent is really crucial for the success of Revolut. And I hope I can meet that bar. Time will tell. I'm optimistic, but I'll do my best. But let's hope I get there. And it shows up in every single aspect of how Revolut does things, right? In the way we identify people that we would like to hire, in the way that the recruitment process goes, how structured the things are, the interviews are, the way we look at the parameters and the data coming out of the interviews. We even have models that predict, based on your answers, what is the likelihood you will reach high performance levels, 6 months in, 12 months in, whatever, working on this talent density, as we call it. And it may feel a bit obsessive because there's so much attention that is paid to all of these things. But we do believe it's really foundational for the success. It's really foundational for both the speed and quality at which Revolut moves. And sometimes it's very hard because sometimes you have to see crazy amount of candidates before you hire the right person, and you will suffer your weight, right? There's things you want done, but it takes time. But that really is the right trade-off, and it really helps the company perform the way it performs.
Okay, so as you mentioned, this word of mouth factor is still there. Obviously, that was the initial driving force behind the growth, but it's still one of the key factors. I really have the feeling that on top of this word of mouth thing, it's more like perception now, like the perception of being able to get your financial errands done seamlessly. And also you need to add the UX factor too. But is that all, or do you have another explanation for this exponential growth?
First of all, on your perception point, that is the truth. That is not the perception, right? We have obsessive product focus, and really it all starts with the quality of the product and the volume of functionality we put out. We want to be the end-to-end financial platform for customers, and it really has to work well, right? And we have, again, I would say obsessive focus on that. And that is one of the things that then leads to people say, look, this was so easy. It's, I see all these kind of new things that are small helpful things or big helpful things come up in the app. And yes, I will talk about it to my friends and my colleagues. And look, if I'm sharing my daily financial life with others, I want to split a bill or request some money or send some money. It's just so much easier. And we are always on the lookout. Is there this other small thing I can do to make it easy? Is it there other, right? So that really is the core that, as sometimes people talk about the flywheel effect, right? The core of the flywheel for Revolut is the high quality of product, high praise of product development that then generates customer love, customer likelihood to recommend. That generates further growth, that generates depth, that generates economics. And the whole thing is a self sort of reinforcing positive feedback loop. We have started being quite thoughtful and deliberate as well on how we get the message across. So it's not just, people talking to other people. We've been quite focused on marketing. We have been quite focused on brand building, partnerships. In many ways, it is something relatively new to Revolut, but it just added that extra multiplier. And we see absolutely that, you continue to have this underlying engine of product quality leading to recommendations and so on and so on. You add to this the voice, the brand to it, the perception, the presence in the different airports with the different sponsorships in the media, right? And that just creates more and more awareness on readiness of customers to jump on board. And the more customers we have, the better it is for them, right? I think that's also an important thing. So it becomes another multiplier effect. If more of my friends are using Revolut, I can use more functionalities, easy payment between each other, and so on and so on. The more the business grows, which then also means we can generate the revenues, the profitability that allows us to invest more in product, right? The more customers we have in Hungary, and Revolut is very data-driven, the more customers we have in Hungary, the more we will be investing in, in functionalities that are specific to Hungary. We've just implemented Quick as, ahead of some of the other players in the market, and we will continue to pursue this.
As we just mentioned, you've been newly appointed to your CEO role. What are your priorities? What do you think comes next and on the top of your agenda here, especially in Hungary or in Europe as such?
Yeah, so let me start with Europe. As I mentioned, we're the largest retail bank in Europe right now by number of customers. But in my view, we are just starting, right? We are in step 3 out of 10 maybe. The way I think about this is that there is room for probably a good 100 to 150 million Revolut customers across Europe. And so therefore maintaining that growth, we're very good at it too, as you mentioned. Maintaining that growth, bringing more customers on board is very important and has this sort of synergistic effect on us. At the same time, the second priority for Revolut is getting more and more customers to use us as their main bank. We've been making awesome progress on this. So, the growth of primary customers for us is much higher than the growth of customers overall. So we're going in the right direction. And of course, as we have more products, as we have more trust, as we have more and more of everybody's friends using Revolut, the easier it becomes. From that point of view, it's very important then for us to build that trust, build that institutional credibility, and then also make sure that we're relevant locally. Every country has its own specificity, has its own demands. And we think that in order to win the right to be the first bank of choice for customers, we have to pay attention and we have to reflect those local aspects. The third thing that we're focusing on very strongly is then looking what are some new types of products and new types of business we can explore. And notably, Revolut Business is one of those areas where we have started recently. It's having fantastic traction, and we're really trying to accelerate the growth on the business side. Business customers, I think, are a very particular match for Revolut because business customers, they're busy and entrepreneurs that for whom every cent matters every day. They usually have more or less complicated setups, and they really appreciate every way you can make the product better, every way you can make the product more seamless is immediately appreciated. So it's such a great fit for a product company like us, and we're making great strides there. And that's just one example. There will be other types of businesses, other types of customers that we would like to pursue. Now, all that being said, and I think, this idea of trust really underpins this, right? We want to meet all of our obligations. We want to, be a good citizen, make sure we have positive impact on the society, on the financial system around us. So I would say a big chunk of what we think about internally and maybe, outside, this doesn't necessarily translate to a customer seeing another product today or tomorrow, but we're really working on risk management, on the internal foundations, deploying Revolut's ability to execute technological prowess, digital sophistication in building a really, really, truly robust, regulated, well-risk managed business for us in Europe.
You mentioned several really interesting things. And one of those was, the transition to having as many customers as possible using Revolut as their primary card, right? As their primary account. Is it like a local thing? What makes people take that particular decision? Or can you have like a one-size-fits-all strategy on this one?
Across most things, you can't really have a one-size-fits-all, right? But it's a sort of one-size-fits-all with some tweaks. So maybe it's a bit of a, made-to-measure concept. The core of the way we manage money, right, is the same across European markets, right? We have accounts, we have cards. And so a massive chunk of what we do day to day is fundamentally the same. Yes, there will be particularities in each market and so on. Then there are some things that are unique to each market. A lot of the markets have built out their own payment methods, for example, specific tax protection instruments, right? Particular habits that customers have. For us, the hope always is, we want to build our platform that allows us to make those additions and introduce these changes in an easy way, right? That's how we achieve the growth. If we're building everything every time from scratch for every market, then you can add, one market every 2 years and you never get anywhere, right? Revolut is always thinking, this is a new construct or a new case. How do I make it a general case? How do I create a pattern that can be reused in other markets? And it may well be we will find something similar elsewhere that we'll need to do. Okay, it will be then easier. But sometimes we also, look at this thing that, country XYZ is doing. That's an interesting thing to try and take to other countries and just see, does it work, doesn't it? We're very data-driven, right? So the idea is we will try these things. We put them in front of customers. If customers find them useful, we'll keep pushing, right? If customers don't find them useful, we'll just stop and look at another idea. There is a whole lot of ideas, right? So from a point of view of product functionality and so on, I think we're well positioned. There is Then I think a bit of always a tail end of things that are important but not very frequent. So I would say, for example, mortgage loans are an example like that. Statistically speaking, most customers don't have a mortgage loan. This is just a statistical fact, right? But of course, if you are at a point where you want a mortgage loan, right, you will want to do this with your main bank, and it tends to consolidate the relationship. And these kinds of things, of course, are also on our radar sooner or later. We've launched mortgages in Lithuania, and this was very successful. This kind of business is somewhat country specific. You need to take it step by step. So we're not going to rush into spreading it, to every country. But for sure, it's a very interesting development for us. So there's kind of, I would say, the second bucket of things where you say there are these things that we still need to put in place. I think most importantly, at the end of the day, it's a matter of time and trust, right? It's a matter of being there consistently in front of customers, doing a good job every day, providing that great user experience, providing the right level of customer support, doing what we said we would do, giving them the right price. And over time, it kind of just happens. We know, people always joke that customers change banks less frequently than they get married, right? It takes, you'll divorce faster than you'll change your bank account. Now,
yeah, our experts keep emphasizing that in our conferences too.
I don't think it's quite exactly true. And I think, the advent of like Revolut's impact in the market has shown that a lot of customers are very much ready to, look at something new, use something new. But that being said, that journey between using Revolut even very meaningfully, right? We will have customers who use us for day-to-day spending. We have majority of their spending. We might have their investments. We might have this, right? But the salary still goes to some account somewhere. And it's fine, it will come, right? It's not like everybody needs to make the change from one day to another. A customer like this, they have already kind of voted with their feet, right? Their usage is with us, their balances are with us. And then, over time at the next opportunity, someday they will make the adjustment. Maybe they will change a job and then they give the new account, right? And these things just take time to unfold. The important thing is they are happening. We see in the numbers, right? That the number is growing very fast across Europe, and we'll just get there.
Right, and having local IBANs surely help people, take that ultimate step you just mentioned. Let's get back to Revolut Business a little bit, which keeps popping up in my YouTube feed as well all the time. And it turns out now it accounts for like 20% of Revolut Group's profitability. So it is really, really important. And again, Nick Storonsky just said the other day how underestimate the importance of this segment, how legacy banks underestimate the importance of this segment, which is crazy because apparently there is a way to turn this segment into like a golden goose. Can you give us a few examples as to how you actually do it? Because as far as I know, you have very much a tailor-made solutions for all these companies. For example, the Italian Football League would be a great example to refer to, which many people wouldn't think of, right?
Right. Yeah. So we have some of those headline clients, and of course, Como, the Italian football club, is one of our business clients, and they were attracted to Revolut because they themselves are quite an innovative platform, let's say. So they were really looking forward to have a partner that can share as for mutual inspiration and keep the pace together. I'm, generally on business banking, to your point, I love business banking and the segment as the customer segment, because in many ways, it's so rewarding for somebody who pays attention to product, because again, there's just so much need. Every single solution that works will be immediately adopted, right? This is it's money in the pocket, it's time saved, right? And businesses are always very, very attentive to it. So if you do a good job, businesses are the most amazing client, right? Because they have this, you kind of immediately see the impact that you have. Now, the point is, they are hard to serve, right? And I think that's where the challenge from some of the traditional institutions comes. Why are they hard to serve? Well, because they need that sophistication of product. And by the way, you're never done, right? It's not like you can build the product and you're like, okay, now I have enough. You need to be able to continuously improve, reinvent, innovate, and respond to changes in the environment. Businesses these days, you look 5 years back, was every business run the same way? No, so many things change, and you really have to keep pace. While maybe perhaps for individuals, for consumers, that there is a sort of more stability. So you need to be able to deliver that product development. Few banks are able to do that, right? Or few banks are able to prioritize this over other segments that they need to serve. We are obsessed with product excellence, so this is a great fit for us. I think this is one side of the story. The other side of the story is businesses can be expensive to serve if you have a legacy platform. If you have paper, if you have, people in cars going to bring cash and, get a piece of a document signed or something, that creates a very expensive platform for any bank, right? We have strong ambitions and focus on automate everything we can, right? Because it makes it easier for the customer, it makes it easier for us, it makes it less expensive for us. So that means also we basically can serve these customers at a higher level of profitability, right? Which is strategically important. It's important for the customer. This is not about money in the pocket, more money in the pocket, less money in the pocket. It's about being able to then sustainably and with conviction serve these customers, because you can, over the years, maintain the right level of profitability and then use that to further develop the product and give them the right price and so on. So I think this is the second challenge that many, let's say, typical institutions have, that I think Revolut has kind of sidestepped or overcome by a factor of 10x, right? And I think the last thing that is historically challenging, especially if you don't have the multi-country diversification, businesses are a little bit more, let's say, sensitive to macroeconomic cycle. And then you see many examples of institutions that have kind of built up, a line of activity within that area, and then maybe there's some period of economic softness. Then they kind of pull back a bit, and then it's always hard to get started again. And I think here the strength of Revolut is that with our scale, with the footprint across multiple countries, we have a natural diversification. We have a natural hedge that hopefully allows us to go through the cycle successfully. We haven't had a global massive financial crisis since 2008, but we've had COVID, we've had the Ukraine invasion. There's been quite a few moments of let's say market dislocation, and I say that at this point, Revolut has been so sizable and so well diversified that the impact of these events is quite limited, and then again we benefit from the sheer size and scale, which makes it again easier in the long term to serve the little bit more volatile, a little bit more risky maybe segments of customers.
Okay, now let's talk about Hungary a little bit, because Hungary is among the top markets for Revolut as far as I know. And your growth numbers are truly staggering here in this country. So what can you tell us about your product roadmap? Because many are super excited and they anticipate so much about, what you have up your sleeves. What can you tell the customers here?
So we will let everybody be positively surprised. We don't talk much about specific product plans ahead of time, but I would come back to the broad strategy that I outlined, right? Like, we want to be the bank of first choice and the daily bank for our customers. And that means we have to have the breadth and depth in product. So, maybe not tomorrow, but, over time, you should expect in Hungary to see grand majority of what you would normally expect a bank to have. We have most of it, but there are some gaps. And, anything that you see abroad, we always test, we always try. And if things work, we will spread it out to every country, including Hungary. And to your point, Hungary is a top 10 market for us globally. We're very proud of the progress we have made. The most recommended bank in the country, 1 in 4 Hungarians with a Revolut account. And we do have this evidence already that this really is a bank of the day-to-day for many Hungarians, right? 80% of the transactions in Hungary that Revolut has are domestic transactions. This is not, shopping abroad or anything of that nature. And again, all I can say is we will keep focusing on product. We'll keep the good news coming, keep the good surprises coming, and slowly but surely we will have everything that you can think of.
Yeah, you sound so positive, although the banking landscape here is pretty rough. I mean, the sector is subject to all these sectoral taxes, the extra profit tax, not to mention the existing transaction fees that now Revolut also has to pay. Are you sure you want to be part of this?
We absolutely want to be part of this, right? We want to be part of Hungary, and we want to be present in Hungary. Banking is not easy, right? I mean, anybody who thought banking was easy had a rude surprise for many, many different reasons, right? And I think we've demonstrated that we know how to do this, and we can manage these kinds of obstacles. That being said, of course, we would welcome sometimes a different approach. We're the largest private company in Europe right now, and we are a great beneficiary of the European project. We're a great beneficiary of the common market. We're a great beneficiary of the rules that allow banks in Europe to serve customers across borders, and anything that helps Europe's competitiveness, Europe's digital leadership in the world, anything that creates the right environment for digital startups and digital platforms to scale and grow in Europe, we deeply, deeply support, and we deeply, deeply cheer. We try to contribute on our own. We share our expertise with the broader ecosystems. You can go online and get some of the playbooks of how Revolut does hiring, how Revolut does other things. We have many of our alumni who have spent their time at Revolut, have learned the approach, and were excited and have started new businesses, quite sizable by now in Europe. We organize meetups for startups where we talk about financial crime or AI, share the experience. We're not secretive. We want to contribute back. And from that point of view, of course, every single time, a given country does things ever so differently, or creates any form of friction or difficulty in scaling, it impacts us, yes, but I think the evidence, given the number of customers we have, shows that we are able to overcome these obstacles. But more importantly, right, let's look at the European project. In the current geopolitical environment, I think it becomes more and more important that we grow European champions. And the only way to grow European champions is to drive for frictionless, smooth, Europe-wide solutions and Europe-wide structures. And again, we will cheer on and celebrate anything that goes in that direction.
Yeah, so it's all great because now basically Revolut is the poster child of European innovation. But, which brings us to the question whether American venture capital might enter the scene, because that's what usually happens, right? Whenever something great happens on the innovation scene in Europe, some American VC shows up.
Right. So we are fortunate to have some American VCs in our investor structures as well, of course. I think the broader question is, I guess, do we expect others to pursue the same path in Europe? And is that bad news for Revolut? And I think, yes, we should expect others to pursue the same path. And in fact, there's a handful of institutions that have been kind of embracing a similar European-wide growth philosophy. Revolut has been fortunate to start early and be successful on that journey. So we are far ahead, but that model is there. I actually think, personally, having spent my entire career in retail banking, I personally do believe that, call it 20 years from now, all meaningful retail banks in Europe will have the same model as Revolut does today, meaning single, modern, digital platform that operates across all markets from a kind of consolidated, high-focus product platform, because that is just the model that is so structurally dominant from the point of view of ability to grow, ability to deliver product, ability to build the right level of cost. So in a way, I'm almost saying, in my view, certain we will have more and more players that we have players that are trying today, and there will be more and more players that will try to imitate the same model. There are a couple of even traditional banks that have kind of publicly discussed going to this model. Now, does that make me afraid? In no shape or form, right? Competition makes us all stronger, makes us all better. Point number one, right? We're always keen to learn. Every challenge, every difficulty is an opportunity to find out how to do things better, and that only makes us stronger. And I think this quick ability to learn and adapt has been like a source of Revolut's strength. And ultimately, if you think about it today, in every market in Europe, there is space for maybe 3 to 5 sizable banking players. And of course, there's more, but 3 to 5 sizable banking players. If I'm correct in saying that every meaningful retail bank in Europe will have this pan-European cross-border model 20 years from now, there should be space for 3 to 5 sizable, banks across Europe. And then, of course, the local institutions will probably have a much harder time competing. And also, does anybody have a chance of catching up with Revolut, right? I mean, never say never, but we are at 58 million customers. I don't quite know how to peg the next one in line, but we're very, very far from everybody else. So we're very far along on that journey, which makes me feel that, like you said, we are the European poster child, and I hope we remain the largest bank in Europe for a very long time and even increase the delta. And the ambition is, 100 million customers and daily active customers in 100 million countries and 100 billion of revenue, right? That's where we want to get.
Sounds great to me. And as much as I would love to continue, I'm afraid we're going to wrap this up now. Kuba, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing all these great insights with us.
Levente, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, it's always a pleasure to be in Hungary. Budapest is so beautiful these days. The weather is great. The atmosphere is great. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thank you again. And that's all for today. This episode was mixed by David Kakonyi. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more awesome content in our podcast channels. And see you next time.